Stop everything. Stop what you're doing right now, because what I'm about to tell you affects every single race on the F1 calendar. Is this the end of Formula One? And nobody is talking about this the way they should be. Missiles, airspace shutdowns, F1 staff literally stranded in the Middle East. And three of the biggest names in the history of this sport, Verstappen, Hamilton, and Alonso, all sending the same message to Netflix at the exact same time. This is not a coincidence. Something is happening deep inside Formula One right now. And today, we're pulling back the curtain. Hey, and before we dive in, who do you believe in this year? Alonso or Hamilton? Drop your answer in the comments right now. Let's see who wins that battle today. Let's start with the story that should be dominating every single headline in motorsport right now. The Middle East, a region that Formula One went all in on over the last decade, is in crisis. A real, dangerous geopolitical crisis. Here's what went down. The United States and Israel launched an offensive strike against Iran on Saturday. Iran hit back hard. Missile attacks struck Qatar, Bahrain, the UAE, Kuwait, Lebanon, and Saudi Arabia. Let that sink in for a second. Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia. These are not just countries on a map. These are Formula One race venues. These are places where billions of dollars in F1 infrastructure, partnerships, and future races are locked in. And the fallout was immediate. Pirelli, the company that literally makes the tires every single F1 car runs on, had a 2-day test in Bahrain, cancelled, gone. Just like that. But it gets worse. Pirelli staff, McLaren personnel, Mercedes team members, all of them stranded, stuck, unable to leave because the airspace across multiple countries was shut down. These aren't just logistical problems. The operational heart of Formula One is being squeezed by a conflict that is very, very real. And here's the timeline you need to understand. The WEC, the World Endurance Championship, is scheduled to kick off in Qatar later this month. Formula One has races booked in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia in April. That's weeks away, people. Weeks. FIA President Mohammed bin Sulayem released an official statement, and the tone? Cautious, careful, diplomatic. He expressed condolences to the victims, called for calm, and said that safety and well-being will guide our decisions. For now, no race has been officially changed. The FIA is watching. The promoters are watching. Everyone is watching. But here's the uncomfortable truth. If this conflict escalates any further, Formula One faces a calendar crisis unlike anything we've seen in the modern era. The sport has tied itself so deeply to this region, the money, the prestige, the night races, that pulling back, even temporarily, would be absolutely seismic. Now, let's talk about something that's going to affect every single lap of racing from 2026 onwards. And the man who's supposed to be the face of this sport is not happy about it. Max Verstappen, 4-time world champion, the most dominant driver of his generation. And right now, he's genuinely questioning whether Formula One's new regulations are even worth sticking around for. At a Viaplay Media Day, Verstappen was asked about the 2026 rule, the biggest technical overhaul in years, with a massive shift toward energy management. And his answer was brutally honest. He said it's going to be complicated to follow and complicated to explain, that people are going to need time to understand what they're even watching. But then he said something that really stuck with me. He looked at the data. He thought about how you'd explain this new style of racing to the average fan. And his question was, is this really what we want? Is this really what we want? A 4-time champion, the face of the grid, asking out loud whether the direction of this sport even makes sense. That is not a small thing. And here's the part that should make F1 executives seriously nervous. Verstappen already suggested during pre-season testing that the 2026 rules don't necessarily motivate him to extend his career. When someone asked how long he plans to stay in the championship, he said he hopes it's for a long time, but admitted that everything is complicated right now. Translation? If Formula One stops being fun to drive, Max Verstappen is not sticking around just for the trophies. Real quick, if you're learning something something today. If this story is hitting different for you, do me a favor and smash that like button. It genuinely helps this channel keep bringing you the inside F1 stories that nobody else is covering. All right, back to it. Now here's the story that has the F1 media world buzzing. Drive to Survive. The show that, let's be real, brought millions of new fans to this sport. The show that turned drivers into celebrities and made F1 must-watch television all around the world. Season 8 just dropped, and for the first time ever, 3 of the most iconic names in the sport told Netflix the exact same thing. Number Verstappen, Hamilton, Alonso. All 3 refused to sit down for exclusive interviews. You're not going to see private conversations, behind-the-scenes moments, or personal stories from any of them. Just archival footage, press conference clips, TV broadcast cuts. Verstappen's refusal isn't new. He's been saying for years that the show manufactures drama, that rivalries are created artificially, that quotes are taken completely out of context. He called it fake. He called it entertainment, dressed up as a documentary. So his absence? Expected. But Hamilton? That's the one that raises eyebrows. This was Lewis Hamilton's first season at Ferrari, one of the most anticipated, emotionally loaded storylines in modern F1 history. A legend chasing one more championship at the most iconic team in the sport, and by almost every measure, it was a painful, brutal year. That is exactly the kind of story Drive to Survive was built for. And Hamilton said no. Think about what that means. The man who is involved in the official F1 movie with Brad Pitt, the man who understands media better than almost any driver alive. He chose not to give his story to Netflix. Then there's Alonso. Same call. No new interviews. No exclusive access. And look, the show is still massive. Over 10 million views last season. 43% of F1's current fan base is under 35 years old. Women now represent between 35 and 40% of the global audience. The sport is closing in on 1 billion fans worldwide, and Drive to Survive deserves real credit for that. But here's what the numbers are also telling us. Viewership dropped around 10% year over year. The growth has slowed down, and even inside the paddock, the cracks are starting to show. Oliver Behrman spent 3 or 4 days filming with the production crew, and not a single second made it into the final cut. In his own words, it went straight in the bin. Meanwhile, Flavio Briatore, yes, that Flavio Briatore, has basically become the show's new villain. In a scene everyone is talking about, he goes at Franco Colapinto and says, "I don't care. I decide what I do. The problem is you." Classic Flavio. At least someone's keeping it spicy. But the bigger picture? When your 3 biggest stars opt out and your behind-the-scenes access keeps getting thinner, that is a warning sign you cannot ignore. So let's zoom out for a second and look at the full picture. Because these 3 stories, they are not separate. Formula One spent the last decade making aggressive bets. Bets on the Middle East, bets on streaming entertainment, bets on flashy new technical regulations, all in the name of growth. And right now, in March 2026, all of those bets are being tested at the exact same time. The geopolitical crisis in the Middle East is threatening races that F1 desperately needs for revenue and prestige. The 2026 regulations might be so complex that they alienate the very fans that Drive to Survive spent years bringing in. And the drivers who carry this sport on their shoulders are slowly, deliberately pulling back from the media machine. Verstappen questioning how long he'll stay. Hamilton going quiet. The FIA being forced to monitor missile strikes on the same calendar as the next Grand Prix. This is not normal, and anyone who tells you Formula One has never been bigger, so there's nothing to worry about, is not paying attention. The sport is bigger than ever, but big things can fall fast when the foundations start to shake. Look, I love this sport. You love this sport. That's why you're still here. And Formula One has proven, over and over again, that it knows how to adapt, how to survive, and how to come back stronger. But the next few weeks are going to be critical. Keep a close eye on the Middle East situation. Watch how the FIA responds if things escalate. See if Bahrain and Jeddah stay on the calendar. And watch what happens when the 2026 cars hit the track for real, and whether Max Verstappen still looks like a man who actually wants to be there. Formula One is at a crossroads, and every single one of you watching is going to see it unfold in real time.